my spooky lover friends. This is the Valentine's Day episode of Dairyland Fright, the paranormal podcast that is about paranormal love in the Midwest. So today we're doing a Valentine's Day episode, and I couldn't think of a better guest who I love and care for more than anything, who's been on the show, and I love every time I can get her on the show. Delightful Deborah from Paranormal Paradigma.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. And again, thank you so much for joining me. Again, my fans love you, my spooky friends love you, and of course, I love you because you always bring some great stuff to the show. And before we get started, though, talking about some spooky love tales, how's Paranormal Paradigma going? Why don't you tell my spooky friend?
Well, thank you for asking. Things are looking up. I really didn't know where this would sort of take me, but so far people are responding well. It really does seem that there is a bit of a niche for people who have paranormal experiences, want to better understand them, want to overcome any fear or stigma associated with them, and the fact that they have somebody to talk to seems to be very helpful, and I've been able to help a few people, more than I thought that I probably had by this point. And it's just getting an overall good response. So basically what I've been doing is one-on-one sessions with a few interested individuals who are looking to deepen their connection with themselves and the paranormal. I've also done group sessions where I get together a group of individuals and we talk about our paranormal experiences and, what they can possibly mean and how to overcome any sort of limiting beliefs regarding the paranormal, or even themselves, and any fear, how to empower themselves, how to protect themselves. So it's been a lot. It's been going well.
Awesome. Because, again, I think that's something that's super important for people out there who listen, not only to my podcast, Dairyland Fright, but listen to other podcasts. A lot of podcasts out there scare you and everything. That's fine. That's entertainment, right? But, there are people out there who are generally scared, who, really need someone to talk to, need someone to talk about, when they were a little kid and they saw a ghost, and now they're kind of dealing with that stigma of, am I weird? Am I strange? What's going on here? So I think that's, what you're doing is awesome. And also, Deborah does these great things on TikTok. Check them out. She's a great actress. Come on, diamond in the rough.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Yeah, so I will always put stuff in the notes and everything, and then I follow her on Instagram, Facebook, all the other places she's on. So if you go to my stuff, you can catch her stuff, and please feel free to reach out to her or reach out to me, and I can reach out to her. If you're maybe don't want to reach out to her and you want to talk to me first, great, I will share it with Deborah. So let's get into the paranormal love here on Dairyland Fright, or Dairyland Love Fright. Today's episode. So, on our 9th episode last year, we talked about a thing called spectrophilia. And spectrophilia is the love attraction to ghosts. Now, go back and listen to episode 9. There's some really funny stories in there. People who say they've had ghost babies, Deborah.
Ghost baby.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they had an affair with a ghost, and they said they had the ghost see. Yeah.
Okay. I thought I had heard it all, but I hadn't heard about that one. So that's very interesting.
And I wrote an article on there. She was on a show in the UK, and people were interviewing her, and she said, "Yep, I've been in love with this ghost, and things are going the way they go, and all this other stuff." And I'm like, "What is going on?" There are women who have been divorced from ghosts because, I don't know, the ghost just isn't working out, so I gotta divorce them. There's been yes, there's been women who have had numerous affairs with ghosts, and, it talked about that. Um, so it's quite interesting to say that, Deborah.
Yeah. Yeah. The fact that this is a thing is
Yeah,
interesting to say the
yeah,
least.
right, it is, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of stories out there too. We'll get some fun questions to ask Deborah here before we wrap up. But Deborah, you said you had a story that you got off of Reddit that you would like to read.
Yes.
Right.
Let's do the it's a little bit long, so bear with me guys. But I think it's kind of cool. Um and if it's on Reddit, typically, it's pretty good. All right. So all right. So this one comes from the Redditor Jupdike 18. So Jupdike 18? I don't
Sure.
know. Sure. And it was 7 years ago, and it says, I fell in love with a ghost. So let's
Mhm.
see what happened there.
Yeah, let's see what
So this
happens.
let's see what happened. So this isn't your typical story of love at first sight. In
Ooh,
reality, it's kind of a love horror story. I
uh-oh.
was 17 and she could have been 30 in ghost years at the time. For all I knew, what? Did he write that right or am I reading it wrong? I was 17 and she could have been 30 in ghost years at the time. For all I knew, had I known she was dead. He wrote that wrong, which I didn't at the time. Are ghost years even a thing? I first encountered her on a bus on my way to school. I moved with my mom into the country and went to school in a small town from the Midwest. The bus would pick me up at 6:30 a.m. every day. I was the second one to get picked up on the route and the second to last to be dropped off. The girl I had the hots for being the only person to be picked up before me and dropped off after. The bus driver would greet everyone by name every morning, so I knew all 12 or so people on that bus, except her. It's as if they were family, albeit one that I didn't really care for. I was quiet and got picked on a lot, so I kept to myself. I didn't really talk to anyone. It didn't help that the bane of my existence rode the same bus as me. We'll call him Dalton.
Mm,
He was the epitome of asshole. He knew that my dad left when I was little and that my mom was odd. He reminded me of it every day. I loved my mother, but when I was on the bus, I selfishly despised her for the life I had been given, even though I knew it wasn't really her fault. But anyway, I saw her on the bus all the time, but never saw her outside of the bus. I always figured I'd probably just never had a class with her or something. I had a crush on her since I could remember. She always had this pastel, spring-esque dress that felt warm looking at it. She had the deepest brown hair and the fairest of skin that contrasted in much the same way the moon contrasts the night sky. I never saw her eyes because she was always looking down or out the window of the bus. I wanted to talk to her, hear her voice, learn her name. She had a mystique that consistently took my breath away, and the mystery of her silence added to my yearning. But I was too chicken. This went on for quite some time. Then, I had a particularly bad day at school one day. Dalton had embarrassed me more than normal. I got in trouble for some shit that some other kid did, and Dalton embarrassed me again. I was
excellent.
mad. Yeah, I was mad. And I knew I needed to calm down. I figured maybe I can use a bad day as motivation to talk to the girl on the bus. I thought that today was already bad enough, so if I get rejected, I wouldn't have really lost anything. The end of the school came and I made my way to the bus. People were already piling in, and when I got on, I saw her sitting by herself towards the middle end of the bus alone. I felt my heart jump to my throat as I did my best to build up the courage I had earlier that day. I made my way to her and I sat down next to her. She was staring at the ground and did not look at me when I sat down. I was quiet for a second before I awkwardly said, Hey, I've seen you on the bus since I can remember, but I never got your name. I'm John. I remember thinking to myself, that was casual and normal sounding, wasn't it? Smooth, right? She didn't answer. I thought, well, maybe I'm not as smooth as I thought. Then I tried again to say something like, I like your dress. It gives off a warm spring vibe. But my awkward ass left that shit fall out of my mouth. I like your dress. It vibes a warm spring. John, fuck you. It was that moment I first thought I would be single indefinitely. But she slowly, but she slowly raised her face to look at me, and she had this shocked look at her face, and it was the first time I had ever seen her eyes. Her eyes were a milk chocolate color that melted into my own bowl of heart fluttering chocolatiness. I started to panic, and she had the shocked, terrified look on her face, and I started to think that maybe I was did something that I had said horribly wrong. But what she said next caught me off guard that I didn't know what to say. You can see me? What? I said, of course I can see you. Why wouldn't I be able to see you? Kind of hard to miss you. She said, "Well, because no one ever notices me. No one ever did." She's like, and then he says, no one ever did. What do you mean? How does someone like you not get noticed? You're, you're really beautiful, I said. She looked at me like I had just committed a horrendous crime the moment I said that. Beautiful, what? She sounded as if she had never even knew or heard of the word. Yeah, you're pretty, John said. You silver-tongued bastard, my eloquence was a panty dropper. Then she dropped the bombshell. She said, you know I'm dead, right? In hindsight, her bluntness was sexy.
Good.
Wait, you're... I questioned, absolutely confused. She proved it by reaching out to grab my hand, and she passed right through me like it was made of water, and I felt a slight chill where she touched me. I should have been terrified, jump screamed, but I didn't. I was captivated, and all I was able to say was, how? She said, my name is, or was rather, Luna. I died about 18 years ago on this bus. I asked her how, again. She died on a school bus of all places. She told me the story of how she used to ride the bus to school with her brother and how she was bullied really bad, just like I was. She said one day one of her bullies that rode the bus with her started to be exceptionally cruel to her. She said that she had had enough and tried to tell him off, and he got out of his seat, pissed, and made his way towards her when her brother stood ready to fight. The bully pulled a knife out of the bag, and what happened next kind of happened fast. Luna stood up to, in some kind of effort, protect her brother as the bully swung the knife. Meanwhile, the bus driver had seen what was happening and slammed on the brakes, causing everyone to fly towards the end of the front of the bus. Luna fell forward onto the knife, with the blade piercing her at the base of her neck. She said she was dead before the ambulance got there. She had been struck on the bus. She had been stuck on the bus ever since, never leaving, never being seen. She said she can only physically interact with things if she was angry or had some other kind of extremely powerful emotion like anger or fear, but she wasn't an angry person in life, so she never really interacted with anything during her time in her mobile prison. She had watched kids come and go on the bus for nearly 2 decades, and no one ever knew that she was even there, until now anyway. During all this, I was having the worst sort of emotional hurricane you can imagine. Here I was listening to the girl of my dreams tell me her life story and me telling a little of my own. Her smile was toxic. Her eyes, her hair, her voice, and I couldn't even touch her. I would never be able to. She saw me several times try to reach for her hand while she told the story. The look of sadness on my face gave away my true feelings. She knew without me saying how I felt about her, and she knew it would never be. I like you, John. A lot. You're sweet, and if I were still alive, I can see myself dating you, maybe. But she looked down, saddened. We locked eyes in silence for a while before the moment was ruined by asshole Dalton, who was sitting a couple of seats away. Hey, shithead. Look, you're you're going just as crazy as your crack whore mother. Oh my god, this language. Jesus. Like, I don't
What's
think I've
going
ever
on?
cursed. Well, I've never said so many bad words at one day. Jesus. So noisy. Hey, shithead. Looks like you're just as crazy as your crack whore mother talking to yourself over there. Or are you sharing your mom's stash? I bet her pipe is shaped like a dick so that she can get both her favorite things at once.
Wow,
Jesus
Dalton.
Christ.
Whoa.
Seriously, fuck Dalton. I heard Luna whisper to me, I'll fix this for you. She walked, glided, right through me and the seats right up to Dalton, who still couldn't see her. And what happened next was the stuff of nightmares. And it was hot. Her image blinked for a second, and suddenly Dalton could see her, and he fell back in his seat, shaken. Luna's face stretched vertically, her eyes turning black and her skin turned brown, and it looked like it was tearing. The place where the knife entered her neck split more wide than any knife could have ever been. Her teeth, all of them, formed into long, narrow black fangs that stuck out of her mouth that had opened wider than any normal human mouth should ever be open. Then she let out the loudest, most blood curdling scream that I could have ever heard, that was laced with years of loneliness, despair, pain, fear, and anger. Dalton fainted out of fear. Me being the closest horror movie buff I was, the closet horror, sorry, me being the closet horror movie buff that I was, had shivers of ecstasy run down my spine. That was hot. Plus, Dalton had been silenced, so plus one for that as well. My day had been made. The bus driver, who couldn't see Dalton passed out in the seat, stopped the bus and looked back to figure out what just happened. I smugly shrugged my shoulders as I had no idea what he was talking about and then asked what the noise was. The other half a dozen of people on the bus sat there frozen, unable to process what they had just witnessed. During this time, Luna made her way back to me and apologized that I had to see that, but that she didn't think he would be bugging me anymore. She said she never liked him. We talked on the bus for the rest of my time in high school. I would always eagerly wait for the bus in the morning, and I couldn't wait for school to be over, to be back on the bus. I even had a car when I'd become a senior, but I told my mom I was going to save money by taking the bus so she didn't question it. Then came graduation. I tried to keep the day out of my mind as long as possible because I knew eventually what it eventually meant. The day I never stepped foot on that bus again. She knew it was coming, and she did the best that she could to take my mind off of it. I needed to tell her. I wished I would have sooner. It was my last day on the bus, and she knew it. My house was quickly approaching. Luna, I said, staring at the floor. It's okay, John. I understand. She could read me like a book. I just, I know it's probably stupid. I've never felt like this about anyone. You've been the only person I can ever talk to and been so kind to me. It's not fair. I can't even hold your hand, and I've tried to kiss you. And if I tried to kiss you, I'd be tasting the window behind you because I'd fall through. Plus, you're practically 30. It sucks. It's not fair. Why can't you haunt me and not the bus? Who is stopping you? I was choking down tears, trying to whisper so that the driver didn't hear me losing my shit. John, she said, wanting to say something but didn't know what. She knew the moment that I left the bus and her, I'd be a lonely wreck. I never wanted to get off that bus. I tried probably half a dozen times frantically trying to hold her hand as we pulled up to my house, only smacking my fingers against hard leather. If anyone else had been watching, they would have thought I was angrily smacking the bus seat. She watched with a sad look on her, unable to do anything. I looked upon her, tears welling up in my eyes, and she met my gaze with a look that only the ghost of a lover could ever give to someone that was still alive and didn't know how to deal with it. I love you, Luna. I love you too, John. Goodbye. I ran off that bus into my house, straight into my room, slamming the door and bawled my eyes out and didn't come out for a day or two. My mother was completely confused as to what had happened. It probably didn't help that I didn't want to talk about it either. A few days later, I had an idea. I waited until it was late at night, got in that car that I never drove, and drove to where they kept the school bus overnight. I hopped the fence and looked for my bus. I finally found it and broke in. I shined my flashlight out around looking for her, but she wasn't there. Luna? I whispered in desperation. Nothing. I sat down in the seat I last saw her, and I silently cried. A moment later, John, what are you doing? It was the first time I had seen her in the moonlight. In the darkness, the light of the moon made her appear translucent yet glowing, a literal beacon in my otherwise dark world. Ironic, corny, cheesy, and I'm stupid. I don't want to be without you, Luna. Nothing would ever be the same without you. I want to be with you, I cried. There's only one way that can happen, and I can't let you do that. I won't let you end your life early just because of me. I can either spend my life alone and sad, maybe marry someone who I don't really love, and eventually I'd still die alone, and after that, I'd be alone forever. Why not die now and just never be alone? I sounded hysterical. I think I was out of my mind. Who was I kidding? I was in love with a ghost. She could respond, someone yelled out, "Hey, who the hell is out there? Come out." I probably should have mentioned before that my bus driver was also the one who ran the bus barn school transportation system. He also practically lived in the bus barn. He was standing outside the bus barn with a shotgun. I didn't blame him. What kind of nut job breaks into the bus yard at 2:30 in the morning? Oh yeah, me. He systematically began searching all the buses, looking for the cause of the noise. That was my loud ass mouth. All the while, Luna was telling me to run away. What can I say? I'm stubborn and stupid. Very stupid. He was walking towards the bus I was on. As he was about 10 feet from the door, I charged the door ahead of him. Luna caught on to what I was doing and made for the door to stop me. The driver saw me burst out of the door, startling him. Bam. It sounded like someone blasted a shotgun off next to my head because, well, duh. But it was way louder than normal shotgun. It sounded unnatural. It almost sounded like there were two blasts instead of one, like some fabric of reality had just been blown apart. My eyes had been squeezed shut and I was shaking. I wasn't in pain and I was still standing, so I figured I'd either died and was already a ghost or I hadn't died. I slowly opened my eyes and what I saw in front of me was something that shouldn't have been possible. It was Luna. She was off the bus. On the other side of her was the driver with a look of absolute shock on his face. The shotgun had been fired, but it missed everything but the bus. Holding the barrel was Luna. She had grabbed the barrel and pointed down the direction, saving my life. The driver could see her too. What he said next caught me so off guard. "Luna?" he said shakily. "What the shit? What does the bus driver know her name?" "Sunny?" was all she said. Okay, what the hell? "But I saw you died," he said. "How did he know her?" "I know. I never left though. I've always been here. On the bus," she said. I'm sorry, he replied. I started to pick up what was going on. "It's okay, Sunny. It wasn't your fault," she said. He broke down right then and there. There were no words for a minute, and then, "If only Mom knew you were still on the bus, maybe she wouldn't have." He couldn't finish the sentence. This seemed to catch Luna off guard. Here she was having her brother tell her that her mom committed suicide shortly after following her death. And she was finding out almost 20 years after the fact. Sunny looked at me and said, "Who the hell are you?" I was so stunned by what was unfolding in front of me that I couldn't even speak. Luckily, Luna explained for him who I was, and I wasn't here up to no good. It wasn't until I finally spoke up about what I was really speechless over did they realize the gravity of the situation. No one else had noticed until I spoke up. Up until that point, Luna was translucent in the moonlight. She was standing solidly in front of me, and she had just grabbed the shotgun barrel, mid-fire, only moments ago. "Luna?" I paused. "I don't think you're," I said wide-eyed. The reality of this quickly swept over the three of us as she looked down on herself, noticing she was no longer partially transparent. She looked up at me scared, slightly excited, and raised her hand. I hesitated. I reached out, and her hand was warm. That was
Wow. Talk about running the gamut from making
I
me
know.
cry to what's going on here, the crazy town, the what I don't wow. Good twist too.
Yeah, yeah, I thought so as well. I was just like, oh, this is a good
Yeah, that was
one.
a good twist. That
hmm
that is just real I love that story. That was a good one. Very nice, very nice. And I think
Good
that
red job, Reddit.
yeah, that really, kind of goes hand in hand with people who have, well, spectrophilia. And,
Right.
I think it's really interesting. Um, I didn't like Daryl, by the way. Boo.
Yeah.
I give it Daryl. But But I think that's just really interesting because, like I said, people, love different things, right? You can't really explain why you may love, I don't your dog or a car or whatever. And, I just think it's really interesting in the paranormal world where people who love ghosts and this poor guy, he finally finds his, like, well, soulmate, if you wanna call it that,
Yeah,
right? And
right.
it's just she's dead. It's a ghost. And it's like, "Oh, man. I don't know what to do about that one." What'd you think?
I loved it. I thought it was a really nice like story. It was pretty well written. And it just kind of keeps you like, okay, well, what's gonna happen? And and then you kind of imagine somebody going through this because I think you were just talking about like, connection. And I think about that all the time. Like, well, we why do we love? We love things for different reasons. And I think at the end of it, it's all to feel connected, right?
Mhm.
Like to find the half of the whole. And so that can come in different ways. And this almost remind like the spectrophilia almost kind of reminds me of the same, uh, I guess the same thing that happens in countries like China or in Japan, where people fall in love with characters like
Yeah.
AI. You understand? Like it's
Yeah.
not real, but they fall in love with them and they marry these characters, these
Yeah.
things. And I think it's
Right.
almost the same. It's like the same thing. You understand? It's just, not the same, I guess, entity or whatever. But it's the same idea. So I think at the end, I think we're all just trying to find connection. And if we can't find that connection with another human, then we'll find it in an animal. And if we can't find it in an animal, then we'll find it in a ghost. And if we can't find it in a ghost, we'll find it in a cartoon character or something like that. Like
Yeah.
it's that like desire, to connect and to feel seen and loved, you know?
Absolutely. That is awesome. That is a great way to explain it because we all wanna feel connected. We all wanna feel like I mean, when COVID happened, it was really hard, right?
Yeah.
Because you
Mhm.
could not some people are like, "Oh, I'm stuck with my family," but maybe you got some good out of it, hopefully. But all in all, you still miss that other connection outside your family or, and it's really hard to describe because you couldn't do it, right?
Mhm.
I just think that's really interesting, and one of the other things too is I forgot to mention too, with the spectrophilia, people also will fall in love with, like, let's say they have a haunted mirror, and in the mirror is the ghost, so they'll, like, fall in love with the ghost or a painting, or you see what I'm saying? Or a statue they believe it's possessed. I mean, it's crazy. Not crazy in, bad sense, but it's just like, huh? Like, but
Mm.
it's connection, right? You said it perfectly. Just connect.
Yeah, and I mean, if you ascribe to the idea or the theory that everything's energy and energy is in
Yeah,
everything, then while a mirror is said to be a portal, paintings are said to still, or articles, objects can still hold the energy of, its past owners. Um, what else did you say? Just other things like
yeah,
energy is always present. Yeah,
right.
right. So assuming that everything's energy and we all have a sort of a unique energy imprint and energy is never created or destroyed and we go back to all like the science of it, and it's almost like, well, I mean, is there something there? Like,
Mhm,
I don't know.
right.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's just fascinating me because it's a good question,
Yeah.
right? So this
Mhm.
is really funny. I got some fun questions for you, Deborah, but also I got
Okay.
some funny things I heard from paranormal investigators that I think maybe if you want to add something to it. So
Fine.
one of the paranormal investigators, uh, I always ask them, have they been touched? Have they brought a spirit home? Spirit attached to them? What do they do if that happens? And they all give different answers. But one of the people I was interviewing, they said that they were in a brothel, an old brothel, okay? And they were
Okay.
walking around, the guy was walking around and he felt people touching his butt. Like 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 women
And you're in a
were, like,
brothel.
touching him. Right, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I started laughing, and I thought, "Well, wait a minute. He's in a brothel, that was in the Old West, and that's what they did, right? And they don't it just again, it fascinates to me because there's spirit energy out there going like, "That's what they did," right? The man would walk
Hmm.
in, and of course, it's your job to get him into your room to make money. So yeah. So I
I can see
that's interesting.
it. Sure.
Uh, and my other question then would be to you, let's say you were on a paranormal investigation with your husband and he was getting touched. Would you get mad at the ghost? Would you say something?
I probably would say something if I saw that my husband was bothered by it. Like if my husband didn't care, I'd probably be like, oh, whatever, like it ain't a thing. But if I saw my husband was kind of perturbed and kind of feeling uncomfortable, I'd probably be like, all right, we can stop this now.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
please respect the space.
Yeah. Hey, back up, lady.
Yeah. I mean, if it was a human, it'd be a whole completely different story. But since this is a ghost, like it's just, I'd be like, um, he can handle it. Like you're just like, ah.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense. Pretty much the
Yeah.
standard answer I'm getting. Yeah, that's a good answer. Um, so let's say, my next question, let's say a friend or a client comes to you and says, "Hey, Deborah, I got a problem. It seems my wife is having an affair with a ghost. I think she's cheating on me with a ghost." What do you think you would say to that? How do you think you would handle it?
I mean, I'm gonna speak from a woman's perspective.
Yeah.
Um, if a woman is cheating in any way with any other person or entity for that matter, you got to ask yourself why. Like, what is going on? I mean, this goes
Mhm.
for both ways, but if like a man specifically came up to me and said, I think my wife is cheating me with a ghost, I'd be like, then what are you not giving your wife that a ghost can?
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
So I'd be like,
Right,
what's going on there? You understand? Like, what is
right.
it that a ghost has that you don't? So you better check yourself, buddy. Like, there's something not right with this equation. You're physical flesh, and it is not. So what is going on?
Yeah,
So I'd probably ask that question.
right, exactly, and I just think that's really interesting. That's what people have had. There was a woman who was having a relationship with a ghost, who went to her husband one day and told him, "Hey, I'm having an affair." At first, he got really upset, thinking it's a real person, and then when she said, "No, it's some guy from, like, the 1800s," I can't remember the full story, I'll put it out there on my, social site. He was like, "What?" And she
Yeah.
was in love with some pirate that was haunting their house, or, it was a pirate or something like that, some guy from the 1800s, and, good news is she divorced the pirate guy and went back to her real husband, so that it all worked out in the end, but
Yeah. And I mean, I that we also have to be aware. And like I know that there is a big stigma when it comes to like ghosts and like
Mhm,
having ghostly experiences and being like labeled crazy. So I typically don't like to like touch upon that because I don't want to propagate the stigma, but there is something to say if when it comes to like mental health too and some of these paranormal experiences. And these are one of those experiences where I would legitimately be like, but have you seen a psychologist? Do you understand? Like, I think at this point, like, as I would literally probably say, have you sought some professional help? Because you gotta, you gotta rule out. Like, you just need to rule that out. You understand? Or see how it factors in. And so that's definitely one of these instances where I'd be like, not to call you crazy,
right.
but have you sought a professional advice?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I really, really think what's interesting to me is, like you said, connection and everything like that. It maybe your husband, maybe, tell your husband to dress up like a pirate once in a while. I don't know. But
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right. Maybe
Yeah.
that's what she wants. She wants to And I think that's super interesting because I think a lot of people too, I'm not saying again you can't find love anywhere and love is a great thing, but there are some things where you're like, okay, like the lady I told you who said she's had ghost babies. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay. Uh, how would you talk to a person like that? How do you, because obviously she probably wants a baby, like a real baby,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I'm guessing. I don't know. You tell me.
I I would definitely go that route too. I would say that there's two things going on there that we can't ignore, and one is that need for that connection, and specifically the connection to have a child, like to want the need for a child. And it's maybe she's unfortunately infertile, and she hasn't been able to produce her own children. Then now she's, you know, come up with the idea of a ghost baby, and you know, that's these are instances where you're just like, I don't want to say that this is psychological, but maybe we should try to rule it out
Mm.
just in case. So you understand, like, just because like I believe in the paranormal, and I'm not gonna say that these things can't happen. Like I have no idea. Like nobody knows the true nature of the paranormal, and to what extent these things can exist or not exist in our lives.
Mhm.
But I think that these are definitely cases where like psychological evaluation is a prudent step in determining the you know the truth in all this, and or what this means to that person.
Absolutely. So I'm going to
Hmm.
do another fun thing here. Believe
Yeah.
it or not, some celebrities have had relationships with ghosts. So I'm going to read off a list for you. People, if
Okay.
you know most of these people, Lucy Liu, she had a relationship with a goat. Not a physical one or anything. It was just kind of hanging out with a goat.
Ah.
Um, it's a weird story. I won't get too much into it. Anna Nicole Smith, if you're familiar with her at
Mm.
all, plus size model or whatever you want to say. She was with Marilyn Monroe. She claims Marilyn Monroe would visit her and try to give her advice and try to help
Okay.
her with stuff. So that was a good one. I have no idea. I do not listen to her music, but Kesha,
Okay.
she's had what she calls a relationship with ghosts. I don't know if she still has her paranormal show on anymore, but she used to be having a show where she would like, oh, what was it called? I got it on the sheet here. Something with Kesha, where she would go to all these paranormal places and check out these investigations.
Oh.
Find it right. Dan Aykroyd. He said he's had many relationships with ghosts, some good ones and some bad ones. I do not know who this person is. Maybe you can help me with this one. Coco Austin? That ring a bell?
I think, is that a woman?
Sure. I
Oh,
do.
I think it might be a young. I think it might be a young actress. Me not knowing anything about Coco Ost.
Not
American TV
you.
per. Oh, she is definitely. She's not young. Sorry, I mean, I don't want to say she's definitely not young, but she's not as young as I thought she was.
Okay.
She's a American television personality and actress.
Oh,
Okay,
well, there you go.
I don't know. Okay.
And then Natasha Blasik of Paranormal Activity 2. She claims that she
Oh.
again had relationships with ghosts. Um, and this singer I do not know, but there's a English or a British singer, excuse me, a card, I guess. And she has had a relationship with a 300-year-old dead soldier, and you pronounce this better than I do, Eduardo.
Eduardo.
There we go.
Eduardo.
He
Yeah.
when he was 35. He fell down a well, but they fell in. I don't know where he must have climbed out of the well. But anyway, they have
Hmm.
fallen in love and were to get married, except, and this is hilarious, he ghosted her, literally ghosted her,
Well,
and
I mean,
unfortunately, she and him are not together anymore. But she wrote a song called "Haunted" about their relationship. I can't play the song because I don't want to pay the copyright fees. But if you want to go outside and listen to Brocardi song called "Haunted," that is about her relationship with Eduardo. Yeah. So there you go.
very interesting.
I just think it's really interesting that for me, like with celebrities having relationships with ghosts, I think part of it is because, like, again, connection. They
Hmm.
can't like go out and have a what I would say a normal relationship per se because they are famous. So it's kind of hard
Hmm.
for them to like meet normal people and have normal conversations because they're famous. So I think a lot of this is maybe their connection to ghosts because they're lonely, or I don't know. Or what do you think?
I don't know. It's like it's kind of again like I don't like. It's one of those things where like I understand that it is very possible to connect and have some sort of relationship with a ghost, and I'm not going to say no because I feel like there's billions of people on Earth. Like everybody's seen a ghost at some point. Who's to say ghosts can interact with us at some personal level? You understand? I just because I haven't experienced it doesn't mean that it doesn't necessarily exist. But at the same time, at the same time, it's almost like saying, well, okay, but is it really that that's what's happening and you're interacting with the ghost or some other realm or spirit, or is there something else going on there, right? Is it really just a need for like what we talked about, a connection? Because another thing is that Hollywood is notoriously famous for the type of stressful, like a type of stressful life. Like you said, they can't have normal relationships. They're under this constant stress of
Mhm.
work and like fame. And we all know that a lot of hot stars are also into like darker things like drugs and alcohol and like addictions and
Right.
stuff.
Exactly.
And these things too can also add to some of these, ghostly experiences. So it's like one of these like I don't know what it is, but the only way to really get to it is just to kind of explore it and like evaluate it. But I don't know. It could be both. It could be
Yeah.
m- maybe wanting connection and then that manifesting as a
Mhm.
ghost. Like
Yeah.
you understand, like you want it so bad that it manifests to you in some way. Like I don't know. Who knows? It's
Absolutely.
part of what.
And you Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because well, one of the things is, as we know, is we tend to in the paranormal want to deal with it's scary. It can affect you mentally in a bad way, but this is the exact opposite. This is
Yeah.
love, something that who doesn't love love, right? Who doesn't want to see a
Right.
couple in love? It makes you smile, to see that old couple walking down and they've been married for 40 years and they're still holding hands and kissing. It uplifts you, right? You see that young couple in its first love and you're like, that is so really cool, because we're so
Yeah.
used to, like I said, in the paranormal of like, oh, the ghost scratched me or it bit me or grabbed my butt or whatever it's doing.
Yeah.
This is, I think it's do you find it harmless? I guess that'd be my last question. Do you think this is harmless with these people to a certain point, right? Like you said, I think when you go to past a certain point, you need mental, professional mental health, right?
Yeah. I could definitely see this being something super benign and even maybe positive to one's health, like well-being, right? But again, to a certain extent, right? Like everything in everything needs balance in this life, and if people take it to the extreme, then you got to start asking different questions and seeing how really it starts to affect their life and the lives of others around them. And so that's where I feel like maybe an intervention is probably warranted. But I mean, if this person's just happily living their life, no known sort of any no known psychological issues, just normal person that says that they're having a relationship with ghosts, isn't hurting anybody, isn't really affecting their life, they seem happier about for it and everything.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm
do
right.
you,
There's
boo?
been right. I mean, there's been movies made. The most
Yeah.
famous that everybody knows is Ghost with Patrick Swayze and Demi
Yeah.
Moore.
Mhm.
I mean, and it was, a very loving, touching movie that a lot of
Yeah.
people, have seen multiple times and say, "Okay, that's kinda cool." But if you were to put that to real life, you might be like, "Okay, that's really cool," but, so it's kinda right, it's that fine line between
Yeah,
and
it is. I also think it's validating too, especially if the ghost is somebody that you do know or is part of your family or a passed down loved one or something like that. I think that's when, it becomes possibly really good for the person, again, to a certain extent, because maybe it offers them closure, it offers them some sort of, it helps them process the grief, right, of losing the individual. This is why mediums are so popular and so well sought after. It's because of that. You want that sort of like to to feel that closure, to connect one last time, to make sure everything's okay. And I mean, if that's the type of relationship you're having, if it's like a past on loved one, especially like a husband or a wife that was deceased or something like that, um, it could be very, very beneficial for the individual, and then they can kind of continue on with their lives and sort of like that. So maybe it's just a momentary thing, right? In which
yeah.
case, mhm.
Absolutely. And before we wrap up here, one of the things too is I hear from and maybe you hear this too, at least from mediums and stuff or tarot readers or I spoke to a woman who reads like tea leaves and stuff. And she was telling me the one of the most one of the frequent questions she gets is relationship.
Yeah.
Is like and I
Yeah.
don't know, do you find that true where people might ask, like, "Am I gonna meet, I don't know, Mr. Right or Mrs. Right or whatever?" I'm like, "That's interesting, right?"
Yeah, it's actually one of the most popular questions that I get when I do read tarot, and
Yeah,
everybody always wants to know, when am I going to find the right person? Is this a person for me? Is this my soulmate? And these are questions that are very sometimes, I mean, the cards will say what the cards will say, or the medium will get whatever energy. But I think that where people miss the point and they disconnect is that I can tell you what I'm seeing now, but all this is dependent on what's happening now. Something can change tomorrow. Do you understand? Like, nothing's ever set in stone, because a lot of it also has to do with like your own decisions and your free will. So it's sometimes like, I think people want like to feel validated. So I can offer validation. And I think a lot of mediums can offer validation and security, but not all of this is 100%. You understand? We can see it to where we can see, or feel what we can feel. But after that, we can't get all parts of the story, and like they have to also put in their puzzle pieces to make it all like whole.
I love that, I love that. So one thing I just thought off the top of my head, I have to ask you, because I think you'd have a great answer for me, is before when I was single, women could
Okay.
smell desperate. Is that a thing? Can you smell desperate as a woman? Let's say you're single again, and
Yeah.
you're at a club. Can you is desperate a thing? Can women pick that up?
Yeah. Short answer is yes. We can pick up on desperate, overconfident. Um, we can pick up on, self-conscious, uh, trying too hard. And these are not all women, because I've seen women that I'm just like, girl, what are you doing, girl? But like, if if you're in tune with like your intuition and your womanly abilities, you understand, you can definitely pick on all these things, because men in general, not
Yeah,
everybody, men tend to overcompensate, and it's just really easy to like, you're just kind of like,
yeah,
okay.
okay, okay.
So
So let's do this. Me and Deborah, we're gonna if you're single and you're listening to this, maybe you like some boy at school or you like a girl or whoever, it doesn't matter. Maybe you like a ghost. So don't be desperate, right? That'd be the first thing.
Yeah.
Don't be overconfident. Is I would say, and I know this is pretty cliche, but like be yourself because they're gonna
Yeah.
love you for yourself, right? If you're goofy, you're weird, you're whatever, right? Am I right on that? Is that pretty good advice about that one?
Oh, that's the best advice that I think anybody can ever give. And if we started to use that when we were younger, we'd probably be in better positions. But we don't because we all are young and we think that we know it all. But definitely be yourself. And because I think what we don't realize is that if we start lying and we enter a relationship with this facade, at some point it all breaks down. And when it breaks down, everything that you've built breaks down with it. So because it's all based on a lie. It was all based on something that you never were. And unless you really are in love and you can pick up those pieces and that person forgives you and you can build again together, typically that just all like breaks apart because it was all based on half truths. So you might as well just be yourself.
Deborah and I are gonna do a new podcast called Love Helpline. We call in and you talk paranormal stuff. You can call. We don't care. You talk, no, I think it's really good for people out there who are listening to this podcast and saying, okay, so you want me to fall in love with a ghost or whatever. Like, well, all we say is, make sure you have a good mental attitude about things. If you feel like maybe something not right, seek professional help. And if you're looking to find love around the Valentine's Day and everything like that, right? Be yourself. Don't, come across, be friendly, be honest. Would you say anything else?
And don't stop believing in yourself, I think I would
Yeah.
say, because I think oftentimes people just kind of give up on themselves and they think that something's wrong with them and that that's not going to help. So the best thing they can do is definitely believe that they can get out of whatever rut or improve whatever it is that they don't like about themselves and eventually find their prince charming or princess or whatever and live happily ever after.
That's awesome. So, what do you got coming up, Deborah? What can you share with my spooky friends that they're looking forward to?
Um, well, what I have coming up is kind of more on a local thing. So here in where I live in Gainesville, Florida. So if anybody is listening and is from Gainesville, Florida,
I do
February.
have listeners in Florida, Deborah.
Okay, well, if you're in the area or near the area, on the 18th of February, Sunday, from 4 to 6 p.m., I'll be hosting a group session. Um, and if you're interested in coming, I can definitely have you reserve a spot. So just reserve with me at Deborah, DEBORAH, at paranormalparadigma.com. And I'll save you a spot so that you can come. And the fee is $20. But if you mention this here, you can come in for 15. And then the other thing that I have going on is kind of working more on developing a guidebook for all those, a free guidebook for the paranormal and anybody that's experiencing paranormal activity and kind of understanding a little bit about the paranormal and spirituality, paranormal and stigma, how to overcome the fear, and give you some tips and tools on how to better explore the paranormal and protect yourself while doing so, so that you can better understand these meanings and improve your well-being while doing so.
That is awesome. I love it. So again, like I said, Deborah and I are gonna have our paranormal hotline open. And love. Oh, it's the paranormal love questions here. That's John. Uh, anyway, Deborah, thank you so much. I always love having you on. You're the greatest. You always give great advice, and that story was awesome. I love it, and I hope everyone out there has a lovely Valentine's Day when they listen to this. And this will come out Valentine's Day. I'm going to drop it on that Valentine's Day. I think it's a Wednesday. I don't know.
I think so. Yeah, it's a Wednesday. So happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Yes,
Valentine's Day, whatever you guys want to call it. Just have a beautiful day.
and I will have Deborah back on the show. She loves cryptids. You still love cryptids, right?
Still love it all.
Yeah, still loves
All the spooky. Yeah.
all the spooky stuff. So I'll definitely have Deborah back on because she, like I said, she's awesome and she always brings a brightness to my show, which makes it even better.
Oh, I appreciate it. I love coming here. So thank you for having me.
Thanks, Deborah. You have a great night and happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. Thanks.
Bye bye.
Bye.
In a world where true crime meets the supernatural and the unexplained,
where true crime and chills go hand in hand.
welcome to Total Conundrum, the podcast that explores the dark, the eerie, and the downright mysterious.
Join us as we embark on a spine-tingling journey through the mysteries that keep you up at night.
We're diving deep into true crime stories, uncovering the most baffling cases, and exploring the twisted minds behind them.
But we don't stop there. We're also exploring the paranormal, from haunted houses to cryptids and all the creepy things that go bump in the night. Get ready for some supernatural thrills.
And what sets us apart? Prepare for a dose of dark humor as we navigate through the creepy and bizarre.
We've got it all. Bone-chilling tales, banter, and mind-boggling conundrums. You won't know whether to scream or laugh.
So grab your favorite snack, turn down the lights, and join us for a roller coaster ride of true crime and the supernatural, sprinkled with a bit of comic banter.
Stay curious, stay captivated, and let's dive into the world of Total Conundrum.
Now available on your favorite podcast platform. Get ready to be captivated, creeped out, and cracked up with Total Conundrum. Thanks for hanging out with us here at Total Conundrum. Please make sure to check out our website and blog at totalconundrum.com for news, upcoming events, merch, bloopers, and additional hysteria. You never know what will pop up, so be sure to follow along. If you want to show your support for Total Conundrum and gain access to all of our bonus content, please visit our Patreon page. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The links are available in our show notes. If you have any questions, comments, recommendations, or stories to share, please email us at contact@totalconundrum.com. Episodes are available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you like the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate the love. Keep on creeping on, mother cluckers.